friends, welcome to the Neil's Homestead and welcome to my kitchen. I'm glad you're back. Today I'm joining in a collaboration with Tammy again from Little Jordan Farms, and she's having a Mexican food recipe challenge, making a playlist of people who are putting together videos about Mexican food. When she asked me to do it, of course I started thinking about what I wanted to do. I had a different idea in my mind, which I might do a second video for this collaboration, but then I've come to the point where I'm going to make a soup that is Mexican based, and it's totally made out of food that I have stored in my pantry. Most of it I've canned or I've dehydrated, and so since we're not supposed to be going out much right now because of the quarantine, then I wanted to do something where I didn't have to go to a grocery store and buy anything. So this is what I came up with, and I think it's going to turn out really good. Okay, the meat in this soup is going to be chicken. These are chicken thighs. I put the whole thigh down in the jar. Actually, in 2016 is the date on this, so I've had that for close to 4 years. So that'll be the first ingredient. And then I have black beans that I canned. I have a video about most of these things that I've canned, I think. And I have a jar of tomatoes. From the Amish bulk food store, you can get dried cracked hominy. And what I do with that is I make hominy in a jar like this. It doesn't take very much because that stuff really swells up, but I've got canned hominy here that I made from those dried cracked hominies. And then I have sweet potatoes that I dehydrated that I'm going to add to it too. You wouldn't think that sweet potato would really be a Mexican food, but actually Mexico grows quite a bit of sweet potatoes, and they incorporate it into a lot of their food. And then I have some jalapenos out of my freezer, some bell peppers that I cubed up last summer out of my freezer, and the onions that we grew. I froze a bunch of them, just whole onions. The first thing I'm going to do is, I've got a bowl of warm water here, and I'm going to take a handful of my dehydrated sweet potatoes out. I don't want it to be real heavy on sweet potatoes, but they have a really nice flavor, and I think they add a lot of nutrition. And so I'm going to put some sweet potatoes on to start rehydrating. I don't have to get them fully rehydrated because this is a soup and they're going to be able to cook in that. Next thing I'm going to do is chop up my onion and my peppers. It's really quite easy to freeze onions. We peel the outer layers off, but not all of the outer layers off. And then I washed them and I just stuck them all into a big gallon Ziploc bag. And when I take them out, all I do is under hot water, I peel those thin outer layers off, and I have to cut the root end off because I don't even take that off before I freeze them. And I've got onions. They aren't going to be like fresh onions because when they thaw, they're pretty soggy, but they're perfect for cooking. For freezing the peppers, all I did was take the core out and the top off, and then kind of basically quarter them. Sometimes it didn't come out exactly in quarters. I'm not a perfectionist on stuff like this. I'm a get her done and get it over with kind of person. And when you take them out, all you have to do is chop them up the size you want, whether it's slices or little pieces like I'm doing here. Again, they're not going to be like fresh, but they are fresh as you can get out of your own storage, and cook them. They're going to be just like fresh. You'd never know the difference that you didn't use a fresh pepper for cooking. For garlic, I'm going to use garlic powder because I don't have any garlic in storage except for this, and I also have some in my refrigerator, but I'm going to use this for this recipe and add that to my mix. Next, I'll be dumping out my canned chicken into this bowl. I like to use wide mouth jars for this job, but I obviously didn't have enough, so it's coming out pretty easy. This is a standard mouth. We're going to use the liquid, the broth that's in there too. As I said, this is canned with the bone, but see how the bone just falls right out of there? I guess there are 3 in there. Now, there are some pieces of skin which don't bother me. If you're making this, you can choose whether you leave the skin in or not. But if I don't feel any more bones, then I'm ready to start chopping it up. Now the chicken kind of falls apart this way, and you can just pull it apart if you want to. The only thing is that if you're leaving the length of the muscle tissue together, sometimes it gets a little bit stringy in your mouth. And so I like to chop across the grain of the meat and not have those longer stringy pieces. Now the reason I like to can meat with the bone is a couple different. I like the flavor of it. To me, it seems like the bone adds some extra flavor to the meat when it's canned with that. Also, it's a lot easier just to pack raw chicken pieces down into a jar as full as you can get it. You don't add any water, you only add some salt, and then process it for an hour and a half at 10 pounds. And you've got canned chicken that's ready to use at any time without any preparation. Okay, I'm going to put this chicken in my pot also. It's kind of a messy thing, along with this. Next, I'll add in 1 jar of tomatoes. And these are just tomatoes that are peeled and crammed into the jar as tight as you can get it. It always settles down because I always have all this head space. Even though I start out at the beginning of the canning process with no head space, there's obviously air trapped in there some. And then I'm adding the black beans. I feel like a whole jar, a pint would be better, but I only can my beans in a quart. So I'm going to let most of the juice run, and then only about half of these beans because I don't want it too heavy on the bean side. Then I'm ready for my hominy, and the starches in this hominy really solidify in the canning process. See, there's a little bit of water that runs off, but there's a whole lot of cornstarch, I guess, that's develops around the hominy pieces. Now, if you don't have hominy, what works perfectly fine for this is corn. I actually don't have any canned corn or frozen corn, and so I chose to use hominy, and I think hominy is a common thing in Mexico too. So now I have my mixture of onions, peppers, chicken, tomatoes, beans, garlic, I forgot that, and then the hominy. To this I'm adding a couple of healthy scoops of chili powder. I'm a fairly big cumin fan, so we'll be adding that. I'll be adding that. It doesn't take as much cumin as it does the other to be plenty. Here's something I always add to my chili is some cocoa powder. I found that in a recipe once a long time ago, and ever since then I've been adding that to chili, and this kind of resembles chili, so I'm going to add maybe about half a teaspoon of cocoa powder. It doesn't take a lot, but it really brings out a wonderful flavor. Okay, I'm going to get this on the stove and get it started cooking, and I'm just going to cook this for like an hour. Well, it's 10:30, so we're going to have it for lunch, maybe an hour and a half. And then I need to add a pretty healthy amount of salt. Now my stuff that I can, you usually put salt in it, so I don't want to overdo the salt. Old guy loves salt, and he always salts everything again, even if I've salted it. So for me, I like less salt. something else that I'm going to put in this. I have this broth. It's a meat broth, but it's pork, not chicken. I'm going to put that in there because it'll be a good use to it, and I think my soup needs to be a little more soupy. My sweet potatoes have rehydrated quite a bit, so I'm going to just put them in there. And I don't really want all this liquid, but I hate to waste it, so I'm going to pour about half of it in there. I got a lot of soup today. This would probably be a good recipe to go ahead and can up again. And I might do that, or I'll probably go share it with Jeremiah's family up the hill. And then I'm in the process of making some cheese also this morning, so it's got a lot going on in my kitchen. I've got to get that curd cut and get the cheese process going on farther. Stick around and we'll have old guy taste this soup. So here's my soup. I think it turned out really good. It smells good. There you go.
Looks good. That's real good. It almost tastes like chili.
Yeah, it does.
Very good. And this is some tea that Jan dehydrated that we have on our place at the end of our other house. I think we call it chocolate tea.
That one's apple mint.
Apple mint. That makes the best tea I ever drank. It's really good. And we've been drinking a lot of it all winter long. And thanks for coming, and we'll see you another day.